and welcome to Storytime with Uncle Gravy and Purdy. Purdy, if you could just look at the camera and say hello, that'd be lovely. Purdy doesn't do requests, it would appear. She may be here for some time, she may just be here for the next 19 seconds or so, but let's find out what happens anyway. She's got a lot of love to give, so hopefully she'll be around for a little bit. So hellos to Isaac and to Theo, who is 4 years old today. Yay, happy birthday. And to Joseph. And we're going to carry on from where we left off yesterday, because as we already know, that's how books work. Hollie and Jake were happily settled in the tent, with notebooks ready to record a list of all the animal species that they would hear or see. Hollie had borrowed her mother's voice recorder too, so they could try and catch owls, foxes or badgers making their nightly noises. They were looking forward to the night ahead, and as the darkness started to overtake the light, the solar lights in Jake's garden began to produce their glow. Just like the Rustles, they were distracted by how the hole looked as it became lit with the glow from far beyond it. There was a whispered discussion about whether they would actually see hedgehogs that night, and if they would see any comings and goings through the hole. Hollie was really hoping that they would. The hole had been cut fully a month ago, and had been left alone for any animals to get used to, so she knew they'd given themselves the best chance of a good result. It felt to Hollie that seeing a hedgehog wander through the hole would be the best reward for all the planning and then the patience. Jake was happy that Hollie had so far only talked about the night ahead rather than the previous campout. He usually had a logical approach to most challenges and had a less active imagination than Hollie's, which meant that he had needed to find out the most likely answer for what they'd seen or thought they'd seen. He found it much easier to accept this answer than to think any more about whether it was right or not, as the other options could only produce weird questions. Hollie hadn't mentioned it, so he assumed that the subject was closed, and that put him in an even more positive mood about the whole evening. The windows in the lounge had been open all day because of the heat, so noises of game shows and laughter drifted out, followed by dramatic music which sounded sad in the darkening space around them. Hollie thought her parents were probably taking the chance to watch a film that she would have found very boring or too grown up, and was pleased to think that when eventually the music changed to what sounded like the end credits, it would nearly be time for the lights to go off and proper darkness to begin. At this point, less of me, more of the cat. Because the cat's enjoying this as well, aren't you, Purdy? Yeah, there you go. Anyway, eyes back on me, Purdy, please, if you would. Bernie and Chris ended up having a very relaxing drink and another nibble of fallen fruit near the pond. Hollie's mum had watered the garden later in the day, so the leaves didn't burn in the sun, which meant there was plenty of fresh little puddles to drink from. They knew it was a decent walk from the pond to the mysterious hole, so set off soon after, with Bernie feeling nervous and excited about potential news. Chris was just feeling nervous. Darcy and Ash were now making good progress towards their meeting point with Tilda and the rest of the hedgehogs. Ash didn't really have much choice in this, actually, as Darcy was a much faster walker and seemed to have a way of waving hands and moving around like everything needed a tiny dance to keep things rolling along nicely. Ash had been unsure of what to think when they met, but was already seeing that Darcy did things differently, and that was okay. The way Ash moved and went about things probably looked and felt just as unusual to Darcy, but their shared way of speaking was already a strong way of bonding them together. Back in the tent, nighttime noises were beginning to get louder than the TV noises escaping from the windows, Purdy. It seemed that the foxes were already getting themselves into tricky situations, and were calling out in that foxy, uncomfortable-sounding way. The noise quickly had an effect on something else in the area too, and Hollie swiftly reached for her mum's voice recorder. From what sounded like it was quite close, a badger screeched out, followed by clicks, then screeches from another one. They sounded excited about something, or scared of something, and Hollie and Jake's eyes opened wide as they sat very still and recorded the commotion. As soon as the noises stopped, Jake went to turn his torch on and leave the tent, keen to see if he could see anything, but Hollie stopped him, whispering urgently, "Jake, don't go out the tent yet, and leave your torch off, please. If we sit here and wait, the animals won't be disturbed and might come to us." It's getting properly dark now, so if we move around and start shining torches, they might get spooked and not even want to explore. Jake sat down again, grateful that Hollie had reacted quickly. They would have sounds to listen back to in the morning on the recorder anyway, and what Hollie said made a lot of sense. With a smile and a bite of a sticky bun, the waiting continued. Bernie and Chris had melted into the grasses when they heard the screeches and decided to stay still until they felt it was safe to emerge again. They didn't know exactly what had happened, but it sounded like a big enough thing to not want to meet unexpectedly. In Jake's garden, Tilda, Hattie and Hazel were rolled up tightly in balls next to their mum, eyes tightly closed too and breathing fast. 2 young badgers had come sniffing along from out of nowhere and had been startled by the hedgehog's appearance. Of course, the hedgehogs had curled up instantly, with spikes poking out and faces completely invisible, so all the badgers could do was approach them and gently poke them with their noses. A sensitive nose and a hedgehog prickle had not been a good mixture, and the resulting squeaks and noises were loud and scary for all of the animals involved, but the result was a good one. The badgers ran away, leaving it up to Hattie's mum to decide when to uncurl. After a minute or so, she snuffled to the others, and they all unwound themselves, then looked at her, hearts beating faster than ever, and waiting for her to explain what had just happened. "Okay, children, this is very important. Those were badgers. They were young, but they will still be growing, and they will end up huge compared to us. Badgers normally eat worms, but they will eat anything at all really, including hedgehogs. When they've learnt how to unwrap one anyway. Always look out for them. If you don't hear them first, then you will be safe and okay." Tilda and her sisters were shocked at this news and felt glad that they'd all been together when the badgers had appeared. After another look around to check it was safe to move on, they set off towards an area that they visited most nights. There was now a clear difference between Jake and Hollie's gardens. The sky was very clear and the full moon was high, but really bright. This gave both gardens a magical and interesting appearance, but it was Jake's garden, with the lit-up path leading to the gap in the fence, which looked and felt like it could hold the most possibilities. Ash and Darcy had both been startled by the badger noises and had hidden away behind an old apple tree stump. For the first time since they had met, Darcy was talking in a whisper, but still had the knack of making things sound fairly dramatic. "Oh my days. Oh my nights, oh my close calls, close shaves, you just can't predict how a badger behaves. 1 minute you're walking alone late at night, then a great stripy thing comes into sight. I tell myself, Darcy, relax, they won't eat you. But what if they're peckish and suddenly meet you? I think all the hedgehogs are safe. I heard voices. But should we still meet them? Let's think what our choice is." Ash may have been surprised by the noise, but had heard the Hoglet's mum talking to them after all the badgers had run away, so now felt sure they were safe. There was a special feeling about the night, and it wasn't one that Ash was going to miss. "Darcy, look around. We are safe. We are hidden. The hedgehogs will know taking risks is forbidden. If anything, we will be safer tonight. Their mum will not leave them until it gets light. We all made a plan to meet up and explore. I want and I need to see what's near that door. It could be my way to my home or my friends, or maybe it might be where my hoping ends. But either way, I will meet Tilda, and soon. It's almost the time when there's no light, just moon. The badgers and hedgehogs have gone different ways, so now it's time to go. No more delays." Ash smiled at Darcy, knowing that the smile probably wouldn't be seen, but there was suddenly a lot to feel happy about. In a few weeks, Ash had gone from feeling completely alone to having hope and new friends. So as they walked out from behind the apple tree stump and were heading towards the meeting point with Tilda and her family, Ash couldn't help dreaming that tonight was going to be special. "Well, this is already a pretty special night, eh, Hollie?" grinned Jake as they both wrote tawny owls on their lists. The secretive brown birds had just done the classic calls to each other from faraway trees, which were nearer to the fields. Hollie and Jake had now heard badgers and had seen a few bats flitting past too. These mysterious, speedy and acrobatic dots, darker than the rest of the air around them, but still visible. The most exciting thing, though, had been the noise from Jake's garden. A minute or two after the badger calls, both Hollie and Jake were sure they had heard a hedgehog snuffling and a couple of tiny replies before it all went quiet again. Hollie may have been feeling a bit tired, as it was now feeling properly like night time, but she was also feeling very hopeful and confident about their well-lit and perfectly sized hedgehog hole. Chris and Bernie had come out of their hiding places a long while after all the noise from the badgers and the owls, and were now heading safely to the glowing hole, following the path which Bernie had suggested. Bernie wasn't asking any questions, as Chris was quiet, and that seemed like a good thing. Usually, the quieter they were, the more thoughts would be happening, and that normally led to useful information being shared. Things hadn't been normal for a long time now, so Bernie was really hoping that this night would change all of that. Chris looked at Bernie and realised that it wouldn't be long now until the truth had to come out. At that point, though, with the flick of a switch, the whole scene changed, and the time had arrived. Hollie's parents turned off the house lights, then the outside light too. In the blink of an eye, Hollie's garden was inky black, and there were only two places that eyes could naturally move to. One was far up in the sky, where the moon was glowing brilliantly and looking even more magical as wisps of cloud drifted past it. The other was down on the ground, at the bottom of the gardens, where a hole was now glowing green and offering answers, but secretly providing somewhere that lots of questions would soon be asked too. And there's today's pause. It kind of feels like we're all getting very, 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 very close to the hole each day. And tomorrow, I promise, we're going to go through it together. And I know that because I wrote the story. So thank you for watching today. Stay well, stay happy, and I will see you tomorrow.